Hi everyone. Okay, just bear with me here for a second. Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Bhreagh Orrell. I'm a current student at MUA. Um, in my fourth year, I'm currently streaming from Louisiana. I'm doing a clinical elective rotation here. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself before I speak to you guys about my journey with MUA. Um, I'm from Nova Scotia in Canada, actually a small island called Cape Breton. My previous undergraduate degree was a Bachelor of Science in Nursing, and I did that at home at Cape Breton University. And I graduated in 2015. So around that time, with my clinical experience and speaking and working with some of the docs, I heard about SEBA University. So I took the initiative to go to one of their seminars. And at that time, MUA was having a seminar as well. It's the first time I'd heard of them. So I decided to stay based on suggestion. And I really liked what I heard. I was really interested in the pre-med program there. And I kind of decided to apply, and that's where everything started. So I'm gonna talk to you guys about my journey with MUA and kind of where I'm at now. If you have any questions, please feel free to post them at any time, and I'll come back to them at the end as long as that's okay with you guys. So yeah, I started at MUA in the pre-med program, or the Gateway program, I believe it's called now. I honestly am so grateful for the pre-med program. It was the perfect introduction to the island, what you were going to be prepared for the upcoming med school and even clinicals. The things that I learned in pre-med carried me the whole way through. It still comes up to this day. The other thing about the pre-med program that I really enjoyed is it's not too overbearing. So it's a good way to kind of jump in. You get a little bit of time to kind of get to know the island, you get to know your classmates, and we actually all remained pretty close the remainder of the way through. So in pre-med 1, they even teach you stuff like medical terminology. So if you don't have the experience in a clinical setting, or maybe not healthcare, super healthcare oriented, it's a really good way to get started and to kind of get your feet wet and just learn as much as possible. That's going to come up again in the future. So pre-med 1, pre-med 2, honestly, the professors are fantastic. I felt like I always had some support there, and even as I continued on through the med program, I was able to kind of rely on their support and could go to them at any time for questions. So from the pre-med program, I went on to Med 1. I felt really, really prepared for Med 1 because of what we'd done in pre-med. At the time in Med 1, we had human anatomy and physiology. So one of the really great things about MUA is we had a cadaver lab. So having the opportunity to really visualize things on a body and be able to manipulate and just kind of learn from someone, it was a fantastic experience. I highly recommend that alone. It was fantastic. It really helps you moving forward in clinicals as well. So Med 1, a lot of what you learn in pre-med comes up again. So it was extremely, extremely helpful. Med 2, for me, may have been the most challenging because the workload was heavy, but it was just things that I guess I hadn't seen in quite some time. However, it was probably my favorite semester, if that makes sense. we spent a lot of time with our other classmates studying. There's tons of places on campus to study, and it actually became fun. And the stuff that you learn you may think that like microbiology or biochemistry, tough subjects, but they do continually come up to this day. So I feel like I learned a lot that semester, and even though it was heavy and hectic and I felt like there was a lot of pressure, it was the most fun semester that I had, I would say, on the island with the people that I met. So, Med 3, you move on to bigger subjects that you may see um, as more relevant. However, taking anything for granted that you learn moving up through the med program, I don't recommend it because everything kind of relies on the other. So learning the foundations is how you're going to really understand the broader pathology. So in Med 3, you kind of start that process with pathology and pharmacology. All of the professors are really good for support. You can go to any of them at any time with any questions. And that's another big part of what I liked at MUA because it is smaller class sizes, so you kind of have more opportunity with your professors and more kind of one-on-one time and the ability to ask questions. Med 4, I believe, Med 4 was heavy. It was kind of subject-based at that time. You do start to move on to subject-based, like, for example, cardiology. So at that time, you've already received the foundation moving from Med 1 through to Med 4, and it all kind of builds, as I said. So it's a really good time to dig your feet in and understand what's going to come from there. I mean, all of those things will come up pretty much daily in clinical practice. So everything that you learn is extremely helpful. And like I said, the support that was there for tougher subjects like cardiology or what have you, it was really helpful, and like I'm really grateful for that. In Med 5, so when you're finishing up on the island, Med 5 is your last semester. At that time, you're given time to prepare. You do have some shelf exams that have to be taken on kind of the broader subjects, so the basis of medicine, pathology, physiology. You're prepared for those. You do have classes to prepare for those, but they also give you the time to study and to go to your professors and ask questions at any time. So that was really helpful to prepare. And you kind of use what you learn and how you study for those exams to prepare for the exit exam on the island. And you write that at the end of Med 5. So my experience on the island as a whole, the island is beautiful. The people are extremely, extremely nice, and it's one of the things that kind of draws you in. There's enough to do that you're never bored, and if you do have some downtime, I mean, there is enough to do to really enjoy it, but there's not too much that it's going to be a distraction. I felt like it was the perfect place to study. It was warm coming from Nova Scotia. There is an adjustment in that sense. But it was a really good experience to be able to kind of live in that climate and with people from all over that you meet along the way. And at this point, a lot of those people that I've met on day one are still some of my best friends. So really grateful for the experience. I liked the island so much that I returned to study for the Step 1 exam. MUA does a really good job of preparing you for Step 1 by way of the shelf exams, obviously everything you learn on the way through, and that exit exam. So in the remaining weeks that I studied, I returned to the island to do so. As I said, I think it's a perfect place to study. The library there is fantastic, and they have air conditioning, so I was good. So I felt prepared for Step 1. I was content with how I did on Step 1, and it was a really good basis to kind of jump into clinical rotations. So, moving on to clinical rotations. In your, what would be your third year of med school, you do what's called core rotations. So there are, I believe, 5 or 6 core rotations that you must do that the school helps arrange. And they're really good to take into consideration your needs or kind of facilitate things as best as possible. The locations, I did mine in Brooklyn, New York. We have many locations and people can travel all over. But the locations that we do have, you do see a very broad spectrum of disease. And there's things that, because of the diverse populations that you see, and just the socioeconomic status of maybe some of the areas that you're in, you see things that you may not see everywhere else. So it's a really, really good experience for your third year. You may never see it again, and even if you do, you have seen it once to prepare you. So those rare conditions, we've seen a couple, and it's a really good way to kind of move forward. I really enjoyed my third year. You learn a lot. There is a shelf exam at the end of every core rotation that you do, and that kind of just makes sure that you learned what you need to or are building on that learning moving forward. It gives you a really good indication of maybe where you want to tailor your elective rotations for fourth year and where you might want to go forward for residency or what have you. So at the end of your third year, you have another exam, which is like an exit exam after all of the shelves. That is there to prepare you for step 2 CK. With COVID, things have been postponed, things are different, but the school did the best that they could to make sure that we were still able to participate in electives during that time, to write our exams, and accommodations were made as best as possible. So I believe I was sent home during the COVID experience, but MUA offered some online electives while you were waiting to get back into things. So for my fourth year, I really, really wanted to be able to experience an elective or a clinical experience at home. MUA did a fantastic job of allowing me to do so. I was able to obtain a family medicine elective in my hometown, 5 minutes from my house in Nova Scotia. And it was one of my favorite things about fourth year thus far. They were really good to help and accommodate. And although you take initiative and set your electives on your own, but the support is there for whatever you need, and any information that you might require for that. So that was the beginning of fourth year. COVID did hit. Things obviously have changed since then, but again, accommodations were made and we were able to jump back into electives in person pretty quickly. We have some great places that we're kind of affiliated with that were able to take students throughout the entire time, to make sure you still got some experience, because this may stick around, it may not, but you do have to be prepared. You will be on the front lines. So it was really, really good to be able to participate in that when things were hectic. However, at one point, there was some cancellations for electives, and I was sent home at that time. So MUA made a suggestion to anyone that felt comfortable or had the time to kind of volunteer if possible, or assist with anything for COVID. So I kind of took the initiative when I went home to volunteer at the local COVID assessment center. So it's a location where you swab patients, give them information, teaching on what to do moving forward, and kind of about COVID in general for the bit that we do know. I felt like although I wasn't in clinical rotations, that was a really huge aspect of my fourth year and preparing me to move forward on the front lines. And MUA was really, really supportive of that. And they want what's best for you. Initially, that may concern you to volunteer during COVID, but I'm really grateful that that suggestion was made because I really enjoyed that time and that experience. So you can do electives in whatever areas you really prefer and in locations that all over. So I was able to do some at home. I've been in several different states now, and now I'm here in Louisiana. Um, I'm preparing to complete my electives at this stage. And because of all the changes with COVID, there are some different timelines now for exams and whatnot. So things are a little different. But usually you would write step 2CK following that comp exam and then move forward with your clinical skills. Because things are different this year, there's different guidelines, different timelines, and there's another exam that you have to take. It's called OET. It's like an English proficiency exam. So that's kind of where I'm at with everything. I've had a really, really good experience at MUA thus far. I'm super grateful for everything that I've got to go through. However, I think one of the best things for me was honestly the pre-med program. That kind of set the stage for how successful you want to be and how much you want to prepare and how to move forward. So I'm really, really grateful for that experience. So yeah, if you guys have any questions at all, I can do my best to answer them. So, okay. The process to land my Canadian elective. There's a portal that you have to go through that you have to you apply through that portal. All of the instruction and the assistance was given by MUA and the clinical deans and staff to be able to do that. There's a portal that you apply for and you submit applications that way. However, once your application is submitted, they do have to go to the school and they were really good to kind of push things forward in effort to be able to obtain that elective, and that's what happened for me. It was probably one of the best things that I experienced, being able to be home and experience that kind of clinical area at home. Did I have a roommate? Okay, so when I started at MUA in the pre-med program, I did not have a roommate. I was in one, I should preface this by saying I lived in the dormitory areas the entire time that I was there. But for my first 2 semesters in pre-med, I lived in, it's like a studio dorm, but I had everything that I needed. You still have like a full-size fridge, you have your own bathroom. I felt really comfortable there. And because you're close enough to the school, like everything's walking distance for that. So I didn't have a roommate for my first 2 semesters. Moving forward in the med program, I did. In the same area, there was the opportunity to move into a 2-bedroom apartment. So it was a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. And I moved into that with somebody that I met in the pre-med program. And honestly, I don't think that it's necessary to have that support, but for me it was really helpful just to know that there was someone there and you could always go to them to talk to. So I did like the experience of having a roommate on the island, but it's not necessary. There's many options for living that will suit your needs. Okay, so the curriculum, it is heavy. It's set up as kind of a system-based learning. So they give you the basis of, your physiology, your pathology, whatnot, and then you move into the specifics of that actual area. So like I said, cardiology or something. As you're preparing on the island, you are preparing for step two. It kind of starts more so, or really kind of, I guess, comes into reality in Med 3, Med 4, that that's kind of what you're doing. But everything that the school does to test you, it is to prepare you for step one. So as long as you use your time wisely and you study smart, then you're preparing for step one along the way. And then when you do leave the island, you have a certain amount of time. I don't know the specifics. I apologize. I don't really recall. But you do have a certain amount of time to take step one. So if you want to take extra time to study, that's definitely there for you. And you do take it after Med 5. So there's an exit exam that you take on the island after Med 5. And then as you pass that, you get the clearance to write step one. So like I said, everything is to prepare you, and that's what that exit exam is for as well, to kind of gauge where you're at. Me personally, I'm interested in family medicine, I think. I do have an interest in psychiatry as well. The rotations that I did in psychiatry were phenomenal, and all of the attendings that I worked with were fantastic. So I am interested in psych. However, I think I'm more so family medicine. I like outpatient medicine. I like clinic settings, and I kind of like that variety that you're going to see. But there's so many options. So I think that's where I'm at, is family medicine. Is there a student-run clinic on the island? There isn't that I'm aware of, not when I was there. However, you do get experience in the local hospital. I don't recall if that was I believe it was Med 4. You go to the hospital there, believe it's called Alexandria Hospital, and it's only several people at a time. I think there were 4 in my group, and you work one-on-one with the attending. It was a fantastic experience. The attendings went to school the same way that we are. Either, in the US, in the Caribbean, their training was the same as ours would be, with clinical rotations in the US. So I felt like it really gave you a boost that you needed when you kind of felt like you were studying without the clinical experience, didn't really know what to expect. It was a great way to kind of dip your feet in. And the attendings were great there. For the scholarships question, I'm really not sure. If you reach out to the admissions team, they should be able to answer those questions for you. We do have a great clinical department. So as far as online or in-campus learning for Gateway, I would honestly recommend in-person on-campus learning for Gateway. It allows you the time to orient you to the island. You get to know people. So by the time you get to Med 1, you're really, really comfortable in your surroundings, and you kind of know how you want to study, how you're going to plan out your days, what living is like, grocery stores, and you get to meet people. That was a big thing for me. I met people, I had friends, I felt like I had support at that time because I did go to MUA. It was the first time I had left home. So at first it was scary, but I am really grateful for it. I met some fantastic people that are still some of my best friends. So some things that I didn't bring the first time that I wish I brought with me, as in supplies to the island. If I'm being honest, peanut butter. Honestly, the grocery stores there have everything that you have in the US. I was worried about that when I went, but when I got there, I was shocked. The grocery stores have everything that we have in the US, with the exception, or I should say in Canada, because I'm from Canada, I like Kraft peanut butter, and they didn't have it there. And I don't know if they have it in the US, so now I kind of travel with peanut butter everywhere I go. It's a good pick-me-up after a long day. So yeah, rotations start after you pass step one, and the clinical department's really good to get you in as soon as possible. So I should kind of back up and say that after you write step one, MUA has this really good opportunity. It's called RLRA. So it's a paper that you write. You kind of initiate the process on the island, and then after you pass step one, you complete your research and um, you write a paper. So all of that's facilitated. You're assigned to a mentor on the island that you communicate with and will give you any assistance or guidance moving forward. But it's a really good opportunity to kind of set you up for um, residency and kind of to set you apart from other applicants. Having something that you could publish, which is kind of the goal with RLRA. If you spend your time on it, you do a good job, you can submit it for publishing. And that's a really good indicator that, you know, you're committed and you want to move forward. It is tough to write the paper, but it's been really helpful to have publications with your name on it. And you can say that when you're applying for residency. Does Amazon ship to Nevis? I wish. Before I went, I wasn't aware of some of the shipping opportunities. So I think I FedExed some stuff, which they had everything on the island. I came with a lot of things. It was my first time leaving home. My mom traveled with me and made sure I was prepared. But they have everything on the island that you need for the most part. If there's something that you feel like you have at home that you can't live without, my suggestion would be to bring it with you. But I was never without anything. Okay, good to know. There is craft peanut butter in the US, but yes, craft peanut butter in Canada is my favorite. Do you guys have any other questions about the program, about experiences, anything that you might want to know or learn from what I've been through with the school and kind of in rotations and in, on the island? Okay. So let me just say that if MUA is the decision that you make, which I'm grateful for that decision, really try to enjoy your time on the island and get as much as you can from basic sciences. It's something that we all kind of, I can't wait, this is tough, I just want to move on to clinicals. And clinicals are great, but the experience on the island, we reminisce about it a lot. We miss it. We miss being with our friends and, being with each other 24/7 and having that support, side by side. So really try to enjoy your experience on the island and get as much as you can from basic sciences because it all comes back and it's really helpful when you remember. Okay, so for notes, when I was there on the island, we did a lot of PowerPoint presentations, which you can access on the MUA server when you're there. And I believe I took notes on those PowerPoints directly just on my laptop. I think I always had a book that I wrote, specific things in, but I believe I took most of my notes on my laptop and studied from that as well. Admin is great. They get back to you in a timely manner. They're really helpful for anything that you kind of need. You can ask for any suggestions, any advice. So they're good to deal with. Schedule during clinicals. The schedule varies depending on your location and what clinical rotation you're in. So internal medicine is busy, and you kind of feel overwhelmed at first, but it's one of the best experiences because everything you see in internal medicine, you will see elsewhere. You'll see it in peds, you'll see it in psych. So it can be heavy at times, meaning, maybe 12-hour days, maybe 8-hour days. It just kind of depends on where you're at. But if you're getting everything you can from the experience, it's worth it. You do still have time to study, you do still have days off. But a lot of the stuff that you'll learn from your rotations and then can kind of, complete your knowledge with studying. So the schedule at times is heavy, but it's completely doable and prepares you for residency. That, everything's going to be busy. The Wi-Fi connection on the island, I never had an issue with whatsoever. Um, I was always streaming something in the background when I was sleeping or something, so I had no issues. Could FaceTime home. Everything on campus, they have Wi-Fi there, so yeah, I never had an issue. And when you do get all of that stuff set up while you're there, the local, techs or wherever you do, whatever company you go through to get your Wi-Fi or what have you, are really good to deal with too. Did I pass comp the first time? I did not. I wrote comp twice. However, I'm grateful for that because the first time I was really, really close. Really close. But it gave me the time to really prepare. And then when I took it the second time, I knew where I was at for step one. And I felt more prepared than I ever had. I did study on the island, and I felt really, really prepared because of that, So if you don't pass the first time, basically it's a blessing in disguise because it makes sure that you're prepared when you write the licensing exam, and that is what matters. And at the time that I wrote, I did feel prepared, and I was really comfortable with how I did on step one. Security on the island. Honestly, I felt safe there. If I'm being honest, I felt safer there than in some of the places I've lived elsewhere. It is new to you at first, so you're gonna be nervous, but I never had an issue. I felt really safe on campus. We would study, which is not necessary, but we would study, late at night, stay on campus until 11, 12, later, depending on when we had exams. And we would walk home in the middle of the night or, get up early and go. I never had an issue. I felt really comfortable on the island while I was there with security. Okay. Do you guys have any more questions? All right. So I guess kind of in closing, my experience with MUA has been great. It's a rigorous process, but that's going to be med school no matter where you go. So if you're prepared for that and, this is really what you want to do, MUA is a really, really great option. I've had a fantastic experience. I don't regret anything that I've gone through, and I've learned a lot. And I feel comfortable moving forward for residency. Biggest tips for interviewing. Honestly, be yourself. Be professional in every sense, appearance, your language, but be yourself. You're going to get judged on who you are as a person as well as your knowledge. So as long as you feel prepared going in, you've written your exams, your stuff, you're prepared because you've been through everything, you've been tested appropriately, you're prepared going through. So when you're in your interviews, be yourself, be calm, and everything will go well. Like I said, I'm Canadian, and the experience has been great. I'm not worried as far as that goes. I'm glad you're excited. It is a great experience. Really enjoyed it. sort of coming to the end of mine, and I'm ready to move forward. But MUA has been fantastic. So I wish you guys. Oh, sorry, I totally missed this. Social life and studying. Um, Study smart. You still have time to, you know, spend time with your friends, go to the beach, see some things. It's not something you're gonna do every day. It's not something that I did a whole lot of because, the sun I burn. But you can use your time really wisely, and there's time to enjoy it. Honestly, I loved every second on the island. You're gonna have tough times, but the support is there, and I had so much fun on the island. So as long as you study smart and you use your time wisely, you can definitely balance it. So I wish you guys the best of luck. MUA is a really, really great opportunity. If you have any more questions, the admissions team is great. They should be able to answer anything that you have. And I really hope you guys consider MUA. I wish you the best of luck and take care. Everyone stay safe during these still uncertain times. Thank you.